Ephesians 1 to 10. No, that's not good. Ephesians chapter 2, 1 to 10. How do I cancel this? Here we go. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to walk, you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. That constitutes the bad news. It gives a number of primary descriptors of life without Christ. He's about to tell us what life in Christ is like, but this is the obverse view. This is the other side of it. This is the other side of the coin. It starts off with the word dead. And is that a metaphor or is that a spiritual reality? Well, it's a reality in God. We were dead in transgressions and sins, making a distinction between the nature in which you were born, which is going to explain, but also the things that you do out of the nature with which you were born. You were kind of set this way. You were born in a sewer and you grew up dirty. It's something along those lines. So that there's an inner condition, an inner state, and then the things that come out of that inner state, okay, in which you used to live. I was profoundly affected by a picture of a seagull that was rescued from an oil slick. One seagull. You know how annoying they are when they steal your ice cream? But the seagull was being poisoned by the oil, and someone had tenderly pulled it out of the slick and put it free on the sand on a sheet, and was beginning to nurse detergent into its little body and bring it back to life. But the seagull was almost dead, but it had been rescued. And that's something of the way that Paul talks about us, about people who are born deserving of wrath, outside of the spectrum of life, outside the possibility of life in which you used to live. Then he describes what that lifestyle looks like. He said, where you used to live, when you followed the ways of this world. That's a very strong sentence, isn't it? The ways of this world, the customs and traditions, the way we think about the cultural expectations, the normal stuff that we go through every single day. This is the ways of the world. The way you react to certain circumstances. Say you're in a supermarket and the checkout guy gives you the wrong change and you have a nanosecond of indecision. Do I tell him that it's the wrong change, or do I keep it to myself? And then in that little tiny moment of choice, you discover the ways of the world and how people think. Or if life kicks you on the shins and it's the thought that comes into your head, the word that comes out of your mouth, that's the ways of this world. That's the ways in which we all used to live. He said, you used to live like that. You used to be that seagull caught in the oil slick, slowly being poisoned to death. But, he's coming to the but. He describes that life just a little bit more. He says, you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. And you see that word who in the middle. That means that this whole area of the customs and traditions of the world in which we live is connected with a spirit. And according to the narrative of the Bible, that is designated as Satan, as the accuser, as the enemy, the serpent who deceived. So he's given very many categories of ways of discussing him and thinking about him, but it's a personality. It's a personality, and he calls him here the ruler of the kingdom of the air. That's a very curious phrase. And the prince of the power of the air, the prince of this world, he comes, but he has no place in me. Remember Jesus saying that he has no hold on me. He has no place where he can lodge on me. The implication being that the prince of this world comes and he does find a lodging place in us, who are sometimes less than Christ-like in our behavior. All of us live like that. All of us live like that, under that authority. A prince is somebody in authority, and we're living under this low ceiling, the prince of the power of the air, who is now at work among those who are disobedient. You remember when Paul was at Corinth and he talked in the synagogue and he talked at length, and some people got it, and some people went with it, and others did not, and others refused. And he said, right, from now on, I'm going to the Gentiles. From now on, I'm going to go to people who are hungry. I'm not going to waste my time on religious conversation. This is just too important. That's what here he's saying, all of us lived among that disobedient spirit, that self-righteous, that religious spirit in the past. Like the rest, and this is the finishing point here of this paragraph. This is the statement of the curse. You either live under curse or under blessing. So I realize this is not a very popular statement, but here it is. He said, you are under curse. If you're not in Christ, you're under Satan's authority, the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work. It's not all down to you. You were caught in that oil slick, but the spirit who is now at work, he's at work in those who are disobedient. He's actively seeking the destruction of those who've turned their faces away from God. So half of it is you choosing, and half of it is you belonging to a world. It's like being a citizen of a country that is wrapped in slavery and death camps and poverty, and you're trying to get out of it. Do you know any countries like that? And you're trying desperately, and you're waiting at the border, but you can't free yourself because you're trapped by it. You're enslaved by that situation. He's saying, by nature, you are by nature. That's where you belong. And then he's going to say two vital words that change everything. But God. But God. That changes everything.